This feels like a situation in which you've been asked to either like slow down very deliberately or have been put in a position where you have to. Um, because I'm getting a lot of images of like doing things like the old fashioned way, like, baking bread by hand, walking places, washing clothes by hand, like things that require you to like slow down in the way that you're doing that. So I'm kind of curious like as to why you're either being asked or forced to do this. Okay, so we have 3 of Pentacles, 7 of Swords, Page of Swords, 10 of Swords, Judgment, 5 of Wands. So I think that like the reason why you're being asked to slow down or asked forced to, like I said, it could go either way, is there's something about 2 things. One, I think, is that there may be like certain processes within yourself, especially like mental frameworks or assumptions that you kind of take for granted that are not necessarily serving your best interest. Like certain things that you tell yourself or like you've been told in the past that you've kind of just like internalized and taken for granted a little bit. Um, and I think that there may also be some almost like connections that are like similar, whether that's like a connection to an actual person or like a habit that you have. I think that like there are things that you're kind of like collaborating with and giving your energy to that are not necessarily always serving your best interest. And I think that like you may not be realizing that, but with this Judgment here, like in between this 5 of Wands, 10 of Swords, like it's really something about this situation is like playing it in slow motion so that you can't miss the details. um High Priestess, Ace of Cups, Queen of Wands. I think that there's like a flip side to this as well. Temperance, Death, Knight of Wands, and Eight of Pentacles. um where I think that like there's with the things that you're realizing and like the pace that you're kind of being asked to move through these things, there's also something about like being able to like more consciously and effectively direct your energy, because I think that like deep down, intuitively, so to speak, like the things that are being revealed or addressed here, it's like if you were to like really put words to that, if you were to really fully acknowledge like the way that that like feels to you and like what your intuitive sense about these situations are, I think that like you would see them for what they are, like you would identify that, but it's almost like you've been going and going and not stopping and kind of taking for granted. I think that you were in situations where you couldn't necessarily do anything about those things before. It was almost like those relationships, those habits, those thought patterns, cycles, in a sense, cycles of a lot of different kind, were things that you had to rely on to get through. Um, and now Spirit's kind of like tapping you on the shoulder and saying like, hey, like let's slow down and like reassess. Let's update the system. Let's acknowledge that like you're not where you were before. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. With this death next to the like underneath the Ace of Cups here, it's like helping you to acknowledge the changes that you've gone through and the changes that you and your environment has gone through. I think to allow almost like a sense of healing and reconnection with your intuition. With the High Priestess over Temperance, it's like you almost had to act in opposition to your intuition because you weren't always like given the choice in these past situations. It's like you were almost like forced to like gaslight yourself into believing one thing, because of the position that you're in. Which, I think this may be something that is, finding its origins in your earlier years when, we're children. We don't necessarily have any kind of control over the environment that we're in or the expectations that are placed on us. And so just because, you feel deep down and you have felt deep down since you were very young that, there's certain things that are right for you or wrong for you, or certain things that, you should or shouldn't be doing, or whatever, you don't always have the freedom to like fully express and internalize that, especially if it contradicts with your external environment and what you're being told and given by the people around you, and especially like the people in power around you, your caregivers. And I think that like this is coming at the time that it is, because I think that there's like more, almost like more that your energy is like pulling towards, and more that you are meant towards. But like your guides and spirit, they don't want you to end up in the same cycle, and they don't want you to feel like you have to either like abandon your intuition or whatever else you had to do in order to get by. And I think they want you to know that like this situation is different. Externally, internally, where you are is different than where you were, and where you were and what you believed about yourself to get through that. It doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't define you as a person. And I think that there's going to be a lot of like healing through almost like allowing yourself to be driven more by energy and intuition, as opposed to being driven by, I'm hearing like a lot of like mental scripts. And we do have a lot of like swords energy over here, where we're kind of talking about the past, and we're kind of like looking at the things that, spirits slowing things down so that we can address. There's a lot of swords energy. And like the only wands card that we have coming out here is the Five of Wands, which is all about like conflict, discord, energy that's not really moving the way that it should. But over here, we've got the Knight of Wands and the Queen of Wands. It's like you're safe to like step into your own energy, to like allow your own energy to move you. Like you don't have to manipulate yourself into being someone else, or to restricting your energy, restricting your emotion, restricting your intuition. Because things are different. And I think that there's something about how I think even when you haven't been allowed to fully express yourself or your truth, your identity in other situations, that like you've still been putting in effort to cultivate that, whether that's like on your own or in like a few kind of select relationships or situations. Like you have been, kind of like cherishing and developing that, where you can. And like that effort is meaningful. Like just because other people didn't see that, just because you still had to exist in a certain form to get through those situations, like that doesn't mean that you weren't also putting in the effort. It's real even if other people don't see it. It's real even if other people don't acknowledge it. I'd like to know like what else is kind of next for this collective, as we like step out of this almost like slow motion period and kind of get back into the flow of things. We've got the Star, the World, the Chariot. Well, damn. I think that it's kind of like after this little detour, it feels like things are ready to get moving in a really good way. Because like this energy started out with, I mean, like the Ten of Swords, Seven of Swords, Five of Wands is like not energy that feels like it's necessarily going anywhere, or in a positive sense. It feels, very kind of knotted up and directionless and resistant. Whereas like this feels like very, very integrated, very motivated, full of a lot of like clarity and I think healing. And I think there's something here also about how like once you kind of like click the pieces into place that you need to through this slower period, that it's almost like you're creating a new pattern, you're creating a new cycle. And that's one that's going to be continually healing. That's one that's going to perpetuate growth and wholeness and harmony within yourself and like what you want, but also like with the universe, and like seeing those as kind of reflective of one another. So with this star card here, there's a blonde woman who's like pouring into the water and into the ground. And then in the world here, there's a very similar looking figure kind of seen in this depiction of like wholeness and completion. And it's kind of like those dreams and those energies and those hopes that were representative of your truth, that were like very, very healing to you and very gratifying to you. It's like you're going to be creating this cycle that perpetuates them. You're going to be moving in a direction and a manner that feels like very, very whole. Like the parts of you that are the most important are the parts that are on display, and they're also the parts that are like leading the charge, because we've got another blonde woman driving the chariot here, and it's like all of those parts of you that before you felt like you had to kind of hide away or change or shift. It's like those become the key to your success. And it's almost like that authenticity that you have held within you, and that you have molded and shaped and cultivated behind the scenes, even when other people, other energies were not necessarily like supporting that, even when you didn't even realize the kind of opposition that had been placed around you and within you. Um, it's like that energy, that is your source, that is your driving power, that is you're kind of key to completion and to building this reciprocal relationship with the universe, because we're all reflections of the universe. That's true, in a lot of ways. But I think that when we really tap into our most like healed and authentic self, and like healed not in the sense of like, oh, you don't have any issues or triggers or sensitivity and you're just perfectly fine all the time, but like healed as in being able to accept the qualities, energies, characteristics, desires that you've carried with you your whole life, that were other people, society, whatever circumstance, tried to rewrite or hide or take from you. It's like when you are existing in the way that is natural to your energy and like natural to your being, in a way that is fulfilling and authentic and intuitive, it's like that's when you become a reflection of the universe in a way that is like complete, the way that is profound, in a way that is a reflection of the universe flowing naturally. And that's also when you start to get that reflection, it's kind of like reflected back to you. It's like creating a mirror, or obtaining a mirror that is clear, that is not cracked, that is able, large enough to reflect the entirety of you authentically, fully, again, without smudges, stains, cracks, or restrictions. And it's like once you can see that, once you can move with that, once you can embody that, like that gives you such a more complete, I think, and directed idea of how the universe works through you, and how you can use that, I think, to direct your goals, your dreams, your hopes. Because there's there's sometimes this feeling that we get that we have to like dampen our hopes and the things that are the most important to us, in order to achieve success, in order to complete the cycle, in order to get where we need to go. But it's like this kind of reflection is something that contradicts that belief. There's is something that is about you using those things that you thought that you had to set aside to be your key to success, to be your completion, your wholeness, almost like realizing that there is no such thing as wholeness or completion, that requires you to exist in an authentic state that denies a fundamental part of you. And like that, I think like that's the point of the slowing down. That's the point of the rewriting some of this. It's not about like anything that you are on a fundamental level is wrong. It's about, the idea that there's anything that there's wrong with you on a fundamental level. Like that is the incorrect idea. The incorrect idea that you have to spend your whole life working to perfect yourself before you're good enough to know what you really want. It's like what you really want is the driving force behind the skill acquisition and the patience and persistence required to get what you want and to be who you want to be. It's all kind of interconnected there in a really beautiful way that I think is going to become much more apparent to you, on like a perpetual level, on like a continuous level going forward. So I think that that's lovely. I think that you're doing fantastic, and I think that you're going to be pleasantly surprised at how meaningful and interconnected and intuitive this all ends up feeling. So good luck out there.